And hello YouTube. Another week, another episode of Valiant to the Last. My read through of every single Valiant Deluxe Edition hardcover on the entire Valiant universe. Obviously, I am your host, Thomas Judge, and today we are going to be reading Imperium. So this is the Imperium Deluxe Edition. As a quick recap, what we've read so far has been Harbinger, we've read some Bloodshot, we've read Harbinger Wars. You can see the rest of the playlist of the videos that I've been releasing week by week because I've been going through this. And the last thing I read was Harbinger Volume 2, which ended with a prelude to Imperium. And so I thought, do you know what? I'm going to jump straight into this, even though this came out several years after Harbinger Volume 2, and there's lots of other Harbinger-related stuff in the interim. I thought, do you know what? I'll just see what it's like. So I've dived into it, and I will say this is the perfect volume to follow Harbinger Volume 2. I can confirm that. I'm just going to show you what this looks like. We've got the cover here. We've got the spine. And we've got the back. One thing I will point out is that this hasn't got a number. It's not Volume 1, Volume 2 or anything like that. For a lot of the ones you've seen already, like Bloodshot and Harbinger, they will have a volume number. But for the ones that are evidently one-shots, like Divinity and Harbinger Wars, it doesn't have a number. So Imperium clearly ends here with just these issues. And there are 16 issues in total that I will give you a brief overview of. Looking at the end pages, we've got the flaps there, here. And then, let me just move this out of the way. It's got a nice, cool grey kind of card here, and love the logo. I don't know what this means. I assume that means Imperium in Japanese, but I don't know. And again, nice spine, clean back. Okay. So, what can I say about this? As usual, I'm going to try to keep spoilers to an absolute minimum. One thing I will say is when I went into this, it was because the very last part of the Harbinger Volume 2 Deluxe Edition had like a 3 or 4 page teaser called Prelude to Imperium that showed Exo Manowar, and I was like, well, do you know what, I'm going to jump into this, I'll give it a try. I'm aware Exo Manowar exists. From what I've heard, he's like Thor in the Iron Man armor, and there's aliens and stuff. I thought, I'll give it a try. I've got enough vague context, I can give that a go. First things first, Exo Manowar is not in this at all. At all. Neither is Bloodshot, Shadowman, Ninjak, any of the other kind of Valiant Universe things. There are 2 things in here that are important to know about from the wider Valiant Universe, and I'll get to those in a second. But yeah, that's an interesting learning experience as I was reading it. Again, no one had mentioned that to me in all my looking and hunting for reading guides online. So there are 16 issues collected into 4 blocks of 4. The first arc is Collecting Monsters, the second arc is Broken Angels, the third arc is Vine Imperative, and the fourth arc is Stormbreak. I suspect, haven't checked the trade paperbacks, but I suspect that these 2 would be one trade paperback and these 2 would be another trade paperback. I don't know, maybe they're collected as 4 separate trade paperbacks, who knows. I haven't looked into that because I just bought the deluxe edition straight away. This came out relatively recently. This came out in the last year or so. So this is quite a new deluxe edition and isn't on a lot of the reading guides that I was looking at. So let's jump into the first arc here. What is the story like? The story is amazing. It is hands down, this is brilliant. It took my breath away. If I was going to grade this, I would give this an 11 out of 10. My grading scale is pretty arbitrary. 5 out of 10 is average. And 10 out of 10 is you have to read this. It's exceptional. You need to read it. You need to buy it in the best format possible. And 0 out of 10 is this is terrible. So this is just outright 10 out of 10. It's just so good. There are no harbingers in it per se. This is a story about Toyo Harada, who, as I mentioned in previous videos, is basically like the, I guess the Magneto figure, Professor X-ish, I suppose. Very interesting, nuanced, torn figure, trying to deal with global politics whilst also having superpowers. As you can see, the artwork's amazing. The story is all about Toyo Harada. It's all about his attempt to essentially try to save the world in his own megalomaniacal, slightly insane sort of way. So, something to keep in mind here, right? So this is the first thing I want to point out, is you see this big green thing, right? So in Imperium, in this second arc, which is Broken Angels, we come across this big green thing, which is, long story short, is an alien. And it's part of an alien race called the Vine. And this is just like, they just drop it in. Toyo's got like some alien technology. He has an alien. The alien's on his side. The Vine are around in the world trying to like take over humanity in the background, a bit like the Skrull from the Marvel universe. It was kind of like, is what? When did this happen? Like, when did this occur? So like it was odd reading that. Like I think the Vine from Exo Manowar. I know Exo Manowar's got a lot of space travel and alien planets and all that sort of stuff. So I suspect it's from that. I knew zero about the Vine going into the story. But that said, just the minute you're willing to accept, okay, there are aliens, then the rest of the story all kind of hangs together and makes sense. It's a weird one. If you're kind of wondering like what to think about it and whether or not you'll find it jarring, it really depends on how relaxed you are about these things. I mean, the way I would look at it is that if you can read a Marvel comic and the comic's got Thor in and you don't freak out, then you'll be fine reading this. And the reason I say that is when you think about like the Avengers, you've got, oh, Captain America, oh, he's a guy with a super soldier serum. Okay. Iron Man, oh, he's a guy with a suit of armor. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, cool. Oh, Hawkeye, bow and arrow, right, got you. Oh, Thor, oh, he's a god. He's a what now? Like he's an actual god from an actual pantheon of actual immortal beings that have godlike powers and are gods. Surely that should have like a major impact on society and theology and philosophy and science and everything in every single regard, just the fact that he exists. But of course, in Marvel Comics, you just kind of move over that and you're just like, all right, Thor's a god, right, cool, that's fine. So similarly here, it's kind of like there are aliens, and like people are just like, oh, there are aliens, and then they worry way more about Toyo Harada trying to annex Somalia, and it's like, is that how people are going? Okay, I suppose that's how people are going to be. But as long as you're willing to sort of deal with that, and to be honest, if you're a comic fan, you should be able to deal with that. Then you'll be fine. The reason I'm flicking through the first part here is because once you get to the middle of that second arc, we then have this guy. So this is the second thing, as well as the Vine aliens, which you need to have some context of, which is Divinity. So Divinity, you'll remember, was the very first hardcover from Valiant that I ever read. And I fancied reading it because I thought, oh, it's probably a standalone. It's not a standalone. It kind of intersects with the Unity storyline, which is a bit like, got a bit Harbinger, a bit of Bloodshot, that sort of stuff. So that might have been a misstep. But having said that, Divinity is in this story. And in this story, it's really important to know who Divinity is and roughly what his power set and his background is and stuff like that. So, frankly, once I got to this, I was really glad that I'd already read Divinity, because if I read up to here without having read the Divinity hardcover, I would have been like, who the hell is this guy and what the hell is he doing? So, it's a funny one. I'm very glad that I actually read the hardcovers in the way that I did. Initially, over the last few weeks, I've said, oh, that's perhaps a mistake, but I don't mind doing that. But actually now, what I'm kind of thinking is, between Harbinger Volume 2 and Imperium would be the perfect time to read Divinity. Ironically, Divinity Volume 1, Issue 1 only came out round about this time when Imperium came out. So I think Imperium Issue 9 or 10 got published at the same time or the same month as Divinity Issue 1. So it's kind of weird that Divinity is in this. I can't imagine what it would have been like reading this in real time at time of release. But anyway, that's an important thing to point out. So there are two aspects to this story which require knowledge of the wider Valiant universe. One is knowledge and understanding of the Vine aliens. Relax, you'll be fine. Just accept that there are aliens and then you can just run with the rest of it. Everything else is explained within this comic, you'll be okay. The other aspect which is important is you need to understand the existence of Divinity and what Divinity is. And that, I don't think you can just limp through that on no understanding. Obviously, I'm speaking abstractly because I've gone into reading this with a previous understanding of Divinity, having read the trilogy and read that hardcover in our very first video in this series. But try as I might, I can't imagine reading this without finding that difficult to understand had I not had a pre-existing knowledge to base my understanding on. So those are the two things that I would warn you of here. Other than that, it then moves into the third arc you can see here, which is outright excellent, I have to say. Absolutely off the hook. The artwork is incredibly consistent throughout. The storytelling is incredibly consistent throughout. It's clever, it's smart, it's sharp. I cannot use enough superlatives for this. It is really, really good. We also see the return of Livewire, who we haven't seen, I think, since, I want to say Harbinger Volume 1, possibly. I think I mentioned there that I really liked her characterization. She was one of the only female characters in that first deluxe edition that was actually characterized well. Well, she returns in this, and she is excellent in this, which has finally got me quite excited about reading her standalone series, which I do have as a deluxe edition, which I'll be reading, I guess, in a few weeks' time. Yeah, and like I say, it just is really good. It's got action, it's thought provoking, it's smart, it's got a real resonance with the rest of the story. It really picks up and takes on board all the sorts of ideas that I find really interesting. And yeah, and then it ends. Well, it ends in a position where I'm really keen for this series to continue. I mean, I know Imperium is finishing here with issue 16. This is the final page. But I really want to see where this story goes, because there's a lot still to be said to it. So let's have a quick look through these special features. We've got the gallery as standard. We've got a lot of black and white artwork. We haven't got that DVD commentary breakdown, which we get for some of the other ones, where it breaks things down panel by panel. But it's still really cool and really, really well recommended. Okay. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Imperium hardcover. What do I think overall from where we've got to? Well, I think it's brilliant. I am loving Valiant. As you'll remember from my first couple of videos, I was a little bit wary. I was like, oh man, have I made a mistake and sunk like several £1,000s into all these hardcovers and they're not good? And I would stand by that as an initial sentiment. I think Harbinger Volume 1 is probably the weakest comic out of the entire Valiant universe that I've read. It definitely is, and if it had just been that comic by itself, I just wouldn't have continued. If I'd read that first, I probably would have bought the rest, and if I read that as it was coming out, I wouldn't have carried on reading. But now that I have carried on reading, oh my word, like the quality of the writing, the quality of the characterization, everything really has just ramped all the way up to 11. It's highly, highly recommended. I think this is absolutely excellent. The deluxe edition is beautiful. So yeah, I am basically loving it. Right, so where are we now? I did Divinity, Harbinger 1, Bloodshot 1, Harbinger Wars, Harbinger 2. This is Imperium, this is book 6. So the next one, chronologically speaking, that came out was the Faith series, which is a standalone series of the Harbinger character Faith. So I've got that as a hardcover. I'll be reading that next week, or in the next week, and I'll drop a video on that next week. And then after that, I don't know. I do know there's quite a lot of sort of parallel Harbinger series that have come out round about the same time as Faith and Imperium that still aren't collected in deluxe edition. So I'll probably be reading those and do a separate video on those without this kind of Skycam overview showing you the hardcover and stuff. But yeah, so if you are reading along and you want to keep up with me for next week is going to be the Faith Deluxe Edition. Keep in mind there are 2 deluxe editions. It's not the one with the green cover, which is the really slim one that only contains 5 issues. It's going to be the one with the reddish purplish cover, which is the second one to be released. It still says Faith Deluxe Edition 1 on it, but it contains like, I don't know, I think like 15 issues, something like that. I don't know, I'll understand more about it next time. In terms of my reading, initially, just so you guys know, I was planning on kind of just doing like reading whatever I wanted, however I wanted, or reading the whole universe. But what I'm now thinking of is I'm going to basically just follow the Harbinger thread all the way down. So probably like Harbinger Wars 2, Livewire, all that sort of stuff. And then after I've done that whole thread, what I'll then do is move over to like the Exo Manowar thread and go all the way down. And then like the Shadow Man thread and go all the way down. And it's, I don't know, just for me, it'll be interesting to see where those overlaps are or whether essential or non-essential to read certain things to make it all make sense. Hopefully that makes sense, guys. Hope this video wasn't too long. Hope you found it interesting. As always, please like, comment below. Really be interested in knowing what you think. What you think of these videos, what you think of Valiant, and if you're reading along, and what your opinion is. Alright guys, stay classy.
Alright, thanks for watching everybody. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. As always, please follow me on Twitter at @IamThomasJudge, where I will post a daily review of whatever comics I've been reading. You can get an idea of what I'm up to on the channel. And as always, please support the channel by heading over to Amazon.com and checking out my prose novel about superheroes. It's a completely original piece of work. The first episode in it is called Arrivals, and the series as a whole is called No Gods or Kings. You can find an excerpt of that on my website, nogodsorkings.com. Until next time, everybody, stay classy.